European Union goes all the way back to 1957, when the leaders of Europe met in Rome to hammer out a trade treaty which became known as the Treaty of Rome. The Treaty of Rome laid the foundation for the European Economic Community. At the time, the leaders said there would never be a political union, only an economic cooperation. They were not telling the truth. Their plan was to add treaty to treaty and gradually move the European nations into political union. The euro was introduced in 1999 to provide a common currency to push the political integration process along. It was intended to give Europeans a public sense of unity. That economic cooperation took a distinct political turn in 1993 when the European Economic Community was changed to just the European Community, and even more so when it became the European Union in 2009. The term European Union was used some years before it became an official superstate with a legal personality. But creating a political superstate was not very easy. There must be unanimous approval of all member nations. A European constitution designed to erect a superstate over all the nations was developed and presented to the nations for approval in 2004. Most of them did not ask their people for approval, but simply approved it through their parliaments, which of course consisted of members who wanted European integration. 2 national referendums, however, in the Netherlands and in France in 2005, defeated the European Constitution. European national leaders then went to Lisbon, Portugal, and hammered out another treaty, granting concessions to some nations, and produced yet another treaty which was essentially a modified European Constitution. This they again presented to the nations for approval. Again, most of the national parliaments approved the treaty, including France and the Netherlands. But the Irish Constitution requires that a treaty must be approved by a national referendum. The first referendum in 2008 was voted down by the people. But Europe's leaders reorganized, offered some minor concessions, and the Irish were asked to vote again in October of 2009. This time, the Lisbon Treaty was passed, and the European Union became an official superstate. This European project is linked directly to the Vatican. It is an attempt to resurrect the Holy Roman Empire. In fact, Otto von Habsburg, the reigning monarch of the ancient Habsburg dynasty that controlled Europe for centuries and kept the Vatican in control of Europe, once stated a fact that most people don't realize. The European community is living largely by the heritage of the Holy Roman Empire, though the great majority of the people who live by it don't know by what heritage they live. Otto von Habsburg, 92, was a member of Parliament and clearly has a Roman Catholic vision for Europe. He wants to see Rome back on the throne of Europe, at least behind the scenes, and has spent his life working to accomplish it. Remember that Revelation 13:8 says that all that dwell upon the earth shall worship the first beast, which symbolically represents the Roman Catholic Church and the Pope. But this verse is talking about a global religion. In other words, the ambitions of the Holy See are to impose a global religion around the whole world. And Rome is not very shy about making that clear. She is continually promoting Sunday observance, for instance. As a political nation-state, and at the same time a church, the Catholic Church is in a unique position. She is capable of using her growing political clout to first impress the nations with her assumed spiritual character, and then impose her religion upon them. This is what the Bible actually predicts. If the Holy See, which is the official name of the nation-state of the Vatican among the nation-states of the world, is going to see the fulfillment of prophecy of Revelation 13, it's going to have to get control of Europe politically. Without the European Union and a centralized government, it would be impossible to become the cultural and religious center of Europe once again. As the shadow leader of Europe once again, the Vatican can have a much larger influence on world politics, and especially religion. America Magazine, a Jesuit publication in the United States, confirmed this point on its blog of November 21, 2009. Speaking of Europe's new president, Herman Van Rompuy, the magazine said he is, in short, a bearer of the torch first lit by the Catholic architects of European unity, De Gasperi, Schuman, and Adenauer, who, like Van Rompuy, were all Christian Democrats for whom faith and Europe went together. Notice that the Jesuit magazine said it was their Catholic faith that led the founding fathers of the European Union to initiate the process of European integration. Their vision of a united Europe is really about resurrecting the old Holy Roman Empire. Please note that the Jesuits revealed the secret history of the European Union. Those three men worked very effectively to accomplish this very purpose. All three men were Roman Catholics with a Catholic vision for Europe. All three men were insiders who worked for a centralized European government that would be controlled by Rome. Now let us go back and review what America Magazine said about Herman Van Rompuy, the new president of Europe. Here is a more complete statement. One interesting thing about Mr. Van Rompuy is his Catholicism, about which he makes no bones, wrote America Magazine. He was educated by Jesuits in Brussels, went on to the Catholic University of Louvain, Belgium, and in the 1980s wrote a book about Christendom as a modern idea. He is, in short, a bearer of the torch first lit by the Catholic architects of European unity, De Gasperi, Schuman, and Adenauer, who, like Van Rompuy, were all Christian Democrats for whom their Catholic faith and Europe went together. In other words, 62-year-old Herman Van Rompuy, a Belgian Christian Democrat, is a strong Roman Catholic with a Jesuit education and a Catholic vision for Europe. He believes wholeheartedly in European integration and is certainly very committed to a united Europe in the Roman Catholic tradition, as opposed to secular tradition. He even wrote a book about it. Now, the European Union is an official superstate with a Roman Catholic leader, and the Vatican is well on its way to becoming what the Bible describes as the final ruler of the world before Jesus comes in the clouds of glory. And that concludes this edition of Prophecy Now. I'm Hal Miller, reminding you to keep the faith.
Let's take a trip through Remnant Publications and see how a book is made. We begin in the pre-press room. Computer technician Tim Yeager begins by loading a large sheet of emulsion-coated aluminum into the developing machine. Suction cups pull the aluminum sheet into the machine. Then a special laser head etches the emulsion side of the aluminum, leaving behind only what's needed for printing. It comes off the roller, and a lifting rack brings the exposed sheet onto the other side, where special rollers guide it into the developing stage. Chemicals wash away what the laser exposed. Out comes a plate ready to be used on the printing press. Nate Reed, the pressman, loads the plate into the two-color press. Ink is then applied to the print rollers. A thin coating of water helps the ink not to stick to the printing plate where it's not supposed to. Several suction cups and a pulling mechanism keep the paper flowing into the press. This press can print out 7,000 sheets per hour. This press is called a two-color offset press, and the printed sheets are called signatures. From the press, the signatures are placed on the folding machine, where they go through a series of slots. Then they get folded in several ways. Watching this machine is really cool. The next stop takes us to the saddle stitcher. This machine starts by placing the folded signatures together on top of each other. As they continue down the line, the book covers are dropped on, and the next step is where the high-speed stapler stitches the cover and the pages all together. After being stapled, they continue down the feeder belt, where they go through the chopper. There, the excess paper gets trimmed and cut off. Another process for bigger books is the binder, but before we get there, we need to cut some covers down to size. Now that's sharp! The first stage of the binder turns the pages and puts hot melted glue on the spine. Rollers help the glue to go on evenly. The cover gets stuck to the back. Then they are folded and pressed into the spine. This whole process is done in less than 10 seconds per book. Now that's impressive. After a short trip on the conveyor belt, they come to the last stage. This machine is my favorite. It's called the 3-knife cutter. It's similar to the chopper at the saddle stitcher, but you can really see what this one is doing. After getting cut and trimmed, the books are done and ready to be shipped. Now you have an inside look at how books are made at Remnant Publications.
Have you ever wondered why some married couples seem to look alike, especially when they have been together for a long time? Studies have shown that there is real evidence as to why couples who have been married for a long time tend to look similar to each other. According to research, the increase in facial similarity results from decades of shared emotions. This happens because of something called mimicry. When couples have spent many years together and they've shared thousands of smiles and frowns, their facial muscles start to take on similar patterns to each other. It's also common to mimic each other's habits, which emphasizes physical similarities. And isn't it interesting to see how some people look a lot like their pets? God tells us in His Word that by beholding, we become changed. Every day, we are faced with choices: what we eat, who we spend time with, where we go, and what we do, what we listen to, and what we look at. All of these things have an impact on us, and over time, they can and will shape the person that we are. Scripture says, whatsoever things are true and honest, whatsoever things are just, pure and lovely, whatsoever things are of a good report, if there be any virtue and praise, think on these things. If we make the Bible our guide, we will be the person God has designed us to be.
If you'd like to contact Hal, which I'm sure that you will, you can get a hold of him on the website at www.ktfministry.org. That's for Keep the Faith Ministry, ktfministry.org. Or give us a call at Remnant Publications at 1-800-423-1319. Well, that's all the time we have for today on Bible Alive. And remember, you too can have a better way of life. And what? Don't put it off.
By working together, 1.7 million copies of The Passion of Love were distributed around the country, resulting in an unprecedented partnership with Walmart that led to over 1,000 Bible studies. By working together, over 6 million copies of the 10 Commandments Twice Removed were shared around the world, resulting in more than 20 churches now keeping the Bible Sabbath. By working together, we have shipped almost 1 million Bibles to spiritually thirsty Christians in Africa, touching the lives of 20 million people for Christ. Working together is what allows Remnant Publications to spread truth-filled books around the world to hasten the Lord's coming. Will you join us in that mission? Will you help us reach the world for Jesus, one book at a time?